This will be number 15 video on the odds and ends make and break engine. Today we're going to do the valves, and I did the valves on the 6-cycle oddball, but I missed a few things I noticed when I watched the thing, so I'm going to do a little more in-depth on the valves this time. It shows the valves to be 1.25 inches long, and as you can remember from the last video, I make them out of an Allen set screw, and the reason for that is it has a hex in the top, and it makes it a lot easier to lap. So I'm going to actually make 5 valves this time because I'm building 2 engines and I want an extra one. It says 1.25 inches long, and it says to leave a little bit extra in the writing, but you don't have to do that because when you pull this down in here, you have that little bit of extra. So I'm going to cut these off at 1.25 inches, and we'll show you how to do that easily. So what I do is I use a ruler and I put a mark here at 1.25 inches. So I have an approximate length, and this isn't really fussy either. The valve length isn't really fussy. So I'm going to take and chamfer the end so it's smooth on one end. I'm going to chamfer the end again. So step number 2 is to do the Allen head set screw, and what I do is drill an 1/8 inch hole through it and part it off. I'll show you that in the lathe. And I don't have to drill it all the way through, I just have to get in through the head, so it only takes a second. I'm going to pull that out a bit and part it off. What I'm leaving here is about 3/16 to 1/4 inch, and that can be machined later, so you don't have to worry about how long it is, but about there is good. And I'll do all 4 of them like that, or all 5 of them. I'm going to try drilling this one with the thing extended. I think I can do that without any problem because it really follows the hole in there pretty good. That'll save a step. That's pretty hard stuff. It did a number on this drill. I got to get another one. That drilled fine. I think I can just go that way. So I'm going to set all 5 of them up here at once, put the flux on them. Yeah, there should be enough room between them, hopefully. Just want to make sure I got space between these before. Yeah, okay. Okay, we got to put some flux on those. I was hoping to do these all at once, but I'm having trouble with the fit. It has to be a little bit loose. If it isn't a little bit loose, the solder won't go down in there. It only takes a little bitty piece of this. There. I'll get the tweezers. Okay, that's all I'm putting in there, just that little tiny piece. Gonna heat that up red hot. That flowed down in there pretty nicely. Just that little tiny bit is all you need. This will be the second one. can't get too much flux. I always put plenty of flux on. You can see that run right down in there when it gets hot enough. The little piece just sort of disappears. Just want to make sure all the silver ran down in there and the Allen wrench will fit into it. Gotta cool that off a little bit. Check it. Okay, what I'm doing is running a 1/1000th over reamer through that one. And I'm going to see if the solder flows in better, because what was happening is the solder was staying in the top, the silver braze, and you couldn't get the hex in after you soldered it. Fits on there by hand real easy. The only thing I have to be careful of is that it doesn't slide down when I heat it. Got a small piece of silver braze here. A little tiny piece. Too much is not a good thing. Gotta cool it off. You can see on this one, the braze went all the way down through and is partly on the drill rod here. So the hex part will fit in there really nicely. You can see this one wobbles quite a bit. I'm not sure if that's the chuck or the hole, but it won't matter, because when I turn this valve down, it's going to all line up perfectly. Yep, that is the hole. So this will be a good test. You'll be able to see how I can straighten that out, no problem. Put a little cutting oil on it this time. Cutting. Well, you can only just barely see those chips, but it is cutting now. I can feel them on my fingers, but there's just very little took out of there. See, that's a nice loose fit now. And that's what I want. Just if I can push it on by hand, get it in the right spot. Can't be so loose that it falls down when you braze it, though. Oh, you know, on the next one, what I'm going to do is something else I forgot to show you is I use these little, this isn't the ones you use in your ears, it's a different one, it's a smaller one. But I just use that to get the oil out. Put this on here. It already has some flux on the shaft. And we'll cut a little tiny piece. I'm going to put a little less flux on this, and I'm going to see if Jim can show how that flows in there when it goes. Go for it. I don't know if you can see, but that little chip of silver braze is right there. And when you heat this up, try to put a little clamp on here to hold that in position. Okay, Let's see what happens this time. Gotta put some more flux on it now. If you could see, there was a ball of that silver braze sitting on top of that valve stem. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to put a 1/8 drill in there and check the run out of this collet chuck in that position. Now all I'm concerned with is right up next to the chuck. So that's the high side. So we want to release this so it goes that way. High side's right there. Release it just a hair more. Tighten these just a hair. That's pretty good. That's about as good as I'm going to get it right there. I'm going to leave that alone. Within a 1/2 thousandth is plenty. That's within about 1/3 of a thousandth. This is a very accurate gauge too. Okay. Now, I'm going to set this at 45 degrees. Actually, I'm setting it at 46 degrees because I did the seats at 45. So I want one degree interference. Making a very light cut. It got steeper as I went down to the bottom because I set that at 46 degrees. I want to see if I've got all the way around, so I'm going to shut it off. You see, that's touching all the way around, so now it's running true. All I have to do is, I'm going to take those threads off of there. It wouldn't matter if you left them on there, but they just look kind of funky, so I just take the threads off. Now I'm going to check the diameter of the valve. So that shows the valve head at 3/8 of an inch diameter. And these are just over that, so I'm going to take off about 10 thousandths. See if that does it. There it is, 375 exactly. So we just barely have to touch that. Okay. Now the last thing I do to these is extend them out further and clean up the bottom. Oh. You can see just the base of the thread there, but that doesn't really matter. That makes a pretty fine valve, and that's exactly true to this within maybe a 1/4 of a thousandth. I just have some more cleanup to do on the stem. We just do that with some 3M paper, and then we have a hole to drill through here. This comes out to be about, let's see, 145 thousandths long. So I got to trim the end off to there. So I'm going to take and saw a little bit of that off and then grind it the rest of the way. So I'm just going to clean the end off of that and then grind it. Get some water. It is 1.25 inches. Now we'll drill the hole in the end of it, but I go just one drill larger than that because the wire that I have is a little bit fat, so it makes it better if I go a couple of thousandths larger. Now this jig has a screw so that I can set the depth that it's in there. I'm not sure exactly, I haven't checked that lately, but it should be just right. We'll see, we'll just mark it. I don't know if you can see it, but it's right at the end. So that valve is finished, and all I have to do is make the keeper for it. And we won't show that, that's a pretty simple process. But what I am going to show you is if you don't have a collet set, I'm going to show you how to get this very accurately made without a collet set. So these collet chucks are really nice, but they're a little expensive. And a really good one is extremely expensive, a few $100s. And you can do this with a 3-jaw chuck, actually just as accurate. Always wipe this with Kleenex, because if you get chips in there, it marks it up. And then the accuracy goes away slowly but surely. So make sure it's always clean when you put it together. And I have these back plates match marked. Because I made the back, I machined the back plates when they were on here. So I line up the two ones, and that's on the same way it was the first time I put it on there. Now what I'm going to make is a little jig for this. I'll show you what they look like. This is a little fixture that I made. It looks like a collet. You put it in there, but the problem is if the chuck's a little out, this is going to be a little out. So what you have to do is you have to make it in this chuck without moving anything, and then cut the slits in it and put it back in the exact same position, and it'll be pretty much perfect. I'm going to use a piece of 1/2 inch aluminum for this because I really don't need one this size, but you could use aluminum, but I would use brass if you have it, or steel. Steel's a little harder to work with, but it works really nice. But I like to make them out of brass or bronze. So step one, I'm going to make this flange so it only goes in so deep. I want to get that basically the length of the valve stem and no more. I don't need to do a lot of work. want to make it any more difficult than possible. So that should be good right there. Now what I'm going to do is turn this down so I have less cutting to do. That'll be less with the slitting saw, actually. Now I got to saw that off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to saw this off a little long so I can grab it here. I'm going to drill a rough hole through it. I'm going to drill a rough hole through it, then I'm going to bore it, and then I'm going to mark it and take it out and slit it. I'm going to try a little different method of slitting this and see if it'll work, but be it like an experiment. First I got to face this off. The reason I'm doing this is to make it easier to slit. I'm going to push that all the way back in the chuck, like that. And on number one, I got number one tooth here, and I'm going to mark it on the top. So that's dead center. So I can put that back in exactly the same way. See, the depth is the same because it's against the flange. And that centered on the tooth of the chuck. I'm just going to mark this. Then I'm going to drill through with a 3/32 drill bit. A 1/8 is a little difficult to make because of the boring size, and you want to bore that if you can. So I went in there about 1/4 inch. Now I'm going to attempt to bore that. As you can see, you need a very, very small boring bar. I think I got this off of eBay, and they weren't expensive. I got a couple of them there. But they're nice to have when you have a really tiny hole and you want to bore it. It's the only thing you can do it with. You got to make doggone sure that's a little above. Center. This will break really easy. So now what I've got is this is a brand new drill, and I've bored that in so it's true in about, well, the length of this is about 1/4 inch. And so that drill should stay pretty straight all the way through. But I'm not going to force it. I'm going to go through there and clear it often. Now I've reached the bottom of the hole, so I'm going to go to a smaller drill, and that smaller drill will find the center of where this one was and go all the way through, and then I will open it up. So I'm going in with a 7/64, which is a 64th smaller than the 1/8 inch. You notice I'm not going in very deep before I clear that drill. Forcing the drill in there is a sure way to make it go crooked. Now this is the 1/8 inch drill. Now I'm going to run that oversized reamer in there. This is 1/over reamer. want it to be loose. So I want to put a mark on there in 3 places to slit it. So what I'm going to do is just turn the jaw up like that. Go in there like this. Hopefully that's somewhere near the center. 1. 2. 3. That'll give me a good reference. A little off center, but it doesn't matter. It'll give me a good reference for the slitting. Put it in this vise with that line straight up and tighten it. And then I'm going to put this vise into the milling vise. You see, I didn't line up on that very good, but that doesn't matter. And I cut it almost into the end. Just left a little bit to hold it together. Just cleaning the hole up using a D-reamer. If I use a regular reamer, unless I have a spiral reamer, it's going to slit in one of those slots and then jam. So I do it with a D-reamer. If you don't, let me show you what a D-reamer is. Some people don't know. A D-reamer is nothing but a piece of stock, and you grind it off at an angle, pretty steep angle, and you can harden it if you want to. If you're only going to use it once, probably, and you do an aluminum, that would be fine. And I didn't harden this because it's just aluminum. It cuts really easy. But see, it can't get in that slot. It's only in a tiny spot that it's lined up with the slot. It works really good. So there's number 1. I'm going to line up my prick punch mark here. Boy, I sawed right through it exactly, because I have to put that off in order to crimp it tight. So how I marked that was wrong. I should have marked it in between the vise jaws. So this may throw it off. Let's see how bad it is. 1/8 inch drill in there. Tighten it. And we'll put my indicator back on there. It's about a 1/2 thousandth out right there. So that would be acceptable if it was a 1/2 out, but it probably would have been a lot better. I can't put it in the other way. That was a mistake. When I marked that, I marked it on the tooth. I should have marked it in between the teeth. As you can see, that makes a fairly good collet. Now I'm just going to put one in there and turn it on that. So I'm going to try turning this valve using that fixture. And like I said, if you don't have a collet chuck, then this is the way to do it. And I've got, if Jim would come over here a second, as you can see, all of these are ones that I made before I had a collet chuck. There's a whole raft of them in there, and I'm sure there's a 1/8. I know this is a 1/8, but I wanted to show you how to make it. All these are little fixtures that I made to hold gears. They're made the same way, except I made this one for the 4-jaw chuck for some reason. I don't know why. There it is, exactly 3/8. Now I'm going to pull that out a little bit more and clean up the stem a little with a file. What I'm doing is cleaning up the stem, and I'm not getting anywhere near where it goes into the valve guide, because that would make it loose. So just the very top part, and leave the bottom dirty. I just clean the bottom up with a 3M cloth. There it is.
Got it.
Now you notice I left most of the meat on here with the soldering, and I sort of tapered it down to here. Down here there's hardly any, but up in there where the solder joint is quite a. Now to test these and see how close and accurate the valve guide is you just take the valve. We know this is pretty true all the way through. So I put the valve in there and push it in hard. And I should be able to push it up very easy. But that one sticks just a tiny bit. But I haven't lapped them in yet, so that's very possible. But if you have it sticks really hard after you lap them in, this one only sticks in one spot. I push it down in there and then try it. I'll see that's the spot right there. I have to really push it to get it up. Let's just wiggle it back and forth a little bit, and then, yeah. So I'm going to lap this valve in and then see what the difference is. Now, as you can see, with that hex in there, I can lap that valve in really easy. And if I can push it up with my finger, I got to put some lapping compound on there, and we'll just lap it in. This is a 280 lapping compound. Clover lapping compound. This is probably older than my great-grandfather. Take a little of that, put it on the face of the valve. I'm going to do this real time. There won't be any breaks, and Jim won't cut anything out here. We'll just see how much it takes to lap that valve in there. Okay, I'm going to try it right now. Then we got to wipe off the seat. Got to get a wad down in there and clean that off if I can. No, I didn't do it. You know, it would work nice as a Q-tip. Okay. I can see that has ground all the way around there. It's got a grayish tone to it. I cleaned this off already. I'm going to put a little a little oil on the stem. Now, as you can see, it's hard to explain this. You almost have to feel it. But when I push up on that very lightly, you see it goes up. It doesn't take any force to put that up. Even when I seat it down in there tight, But as you can see that it just moves up there very nicely. It won't stick. So the next thing to do when you get it all together is test them for leakage. But that, I can almost guarantee that that won't leak. Yep, it seems to be good. This valve, if you put it in upside down in the bottom, you can feel that there's a tiny bit of play in that. These valve guides, I think I reamed them 1/1000th over, and you can do that if it doesn't fit, but you want as close a fit as you can get without any drag at all. It has to just go in there just like that, just slick. The exhaust valve isn't so fussy, but the intake valve is. It works on atmospheric pressure and it has a very light spring on it, so the spring has to be able to pull it back in position. You can see that doesn't stick at all. Push it down in there hard and it doesn't stick. That'll be the end of number 15 on the odds and ends hit and miss engine, and I hope you learned something. Making these fixtures is a good idea. I've used them for years. Somebody else showed this to me probably 30 years ago when I got my first lathe, 40 years ago, and I've been using it ever since. But since I got a collet chuck, I don't have to do that so much. But it's a handy fixture to know about, because a lot of times you have to hold a gear like this, and you want to do some work on that side. So you make up one of those fixtures. And I'm not sure if I have the one for this. I probably do. Not it. I know I got one somewhere. But as you can see, to have the fixture to grip the gear is so handy. And you can actually take and you can machine in more here, leave the step there, and you'll have a dual size fixture. So you could put that in there in a little deeper and you could ream it or whatever you had to do, but you couldn't get to the gears. You couldn't do this because it would be in further. But it would be good for reaming. So next week we'll be making the rocking arm here that opens the exhaust valve, and that's a two-piece project, and that'll be yeah, I think this is part of it here. It's bolted together so it's adjustable. So that'll be next week's project. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked what you saw, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel.